From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. We begin tonight with the 2020 vote. President Trump hit two battleground states in the South, Florida and North Carolina, where he signed an executive order outlining his health care plan priorities. The campaign stops come as the president is also getting pushback from lawmakers over his refusal to commit to a peaceful transition of power if he loses the upcoming election. Deborah Alfarone is on Capitol Hill with more.
The president took the campaign stage in Jacksonville, Florida.
We're going to win Florida. We're going to win 4 more years in the White House.
Earlier, the president laid out his health care vision in North Carolina.
We're delivering better care with more choice at a much lower cost.
The White House is dealing with fallout after President Trump refused to commit to a peaceful transition of power if he loses the November 3rd election.
We want to make sure the election is honest, and I'm not sure that it can be.
The reaction from Capitol Hill was swift and decisive.
There will be a very peaceful transition.
If he loses, he is going to leave office, because we are going to defend American democracy.
The president also continues to attack mail-in voting efforts with unsubstantiated claims of major fraud. Those claims, though, were contradicted by the FBI director at a Senate hearing.
We have not seen, historically, any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election, whether it's by mail or otherwise. We have seen voter fraud at the local level from time to time.
The Trump campaign has mounted legal challenges to mail-in voting in several states, and those cases could make it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. The president and first lady were heckled while paying their respects to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. President Trump will name her successor this Saturday, and he's pushing to get a Senate confirmation vote before the November election. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Also today, the U.S. Senate passed a resolution by unanimous consent to reaffirm its commitment to the peaceful transfer of power. Montana sets a new record for confirmed COVID-19 cases today, and it's not just a small bump. The state reporting an additional 333 active cases. That's a 40-case jump over the previous Montana record that was set just last week. Now, the biggest increase right here in Yellowstone County, 62 new cases reported today, taking the total active cases to 689 in the county. Roosevelt County reports 56 new cases. Missoula County added 46. Petroleum County, by the way, is now the only county in the state to report no COVID-19 cases. Well, the booming housing market we're witnessing in Montana, thanks in a small part to the pandemic, is also a boom for scam artists. Q2's Jay Cohn reports tonight on a scam that uses new real estate listings to try to tap into millions of dollars in unemployment claims.
So imagine my surprise when I came to my mailbox the other day and found 10 letters from the State Department of Labor and Industry Unemployment Division, all with my address, but for other people. Jody Galgame, Annette Joseph, Antonio Powell, Harold Berry III. Turns out each name is a stolen identity, likely victims of data breaches.
Oftentimes they're large criminal organizations. They don't reside in Montana. What they want to do is put a Montana address onto the stolen identity. So they are going out online to real estate listings and looking for addresses of property that is up for sale. And they're using that as their address.
When the new CARES Act added billions of federal unemployment dollars into the mix in response to the pandemic, scammers saw an opportunity. The result, an uptick in unemployment fraud in every state. In Montana, from June 1st to August 31st of this year, the Labor Department's Fraud Detection Unit stopped $189 million in fraudulent payments, plus another $185 million in potential payments were withheld.
In most cases, we already know this is a fraudulent claim. What the mail is a downstream effect of that. You know, we're trying to verify identities and incomes, and we're using mail to do that.
So what should you do if suddenly a batch of mail shows up from the Department of Labor Unemployment Division?
Please write return to sender on that, or NATA, or both, not at this address. And that will get returned to us. I encourage people, if they can, to stick it in a U.S. mailbox. We'll get it quicker. I'm thinking if the house is up for sale, there might be a hold on the mail, so the mail, the letter carrier is not checking that daily. If they can just throw that in the mailbox, it's great help to us.
Martin has also enlisted the help of the Montana Association of Realtors to help alert buyers and sellers to this latest scam. Your best bet, he says, is to alert the state's fraud hotline to report anything suspicious. The bottom line, if you see something, say something. In Billings, I'm Jay Cohn reporting for MTN News.
Thanks, Jay. And Jay also tells us the scammers have even created fake websites to entice people to give personal information. So the easiest way to check the legitimacy of a site is if it does not end with .gov, it's probably a fraud. Well, a Billings restaurant owner is now charged with raping one employee and sexually assaulting another. 48-year-old Chian Howard Washen owns the Asian Sea Grill and Carney Brazilian Grill on Billings West End and Wild Ginger downtown. Court documents state on April 19th, Shen forced his way into the woman's restroom at Carney Brazilian Grill and forced himself on a 28-year-old female employee, later handing her $200. The woman never returned to work. On May 21st, Shen allegedly grabbed the breast of a 34-year-old female worker after he handed her a $300 bonus. Now, Shen told detectives he did not commit either crime. He's ordered to appear in district court on October 7th. And Louisville's mayor is extending a curfew through the weekend after 2 officers were shot during protests over the Breonna Taylor grand jury decision last night. This as protesters continue to gather in Louisville and across the nation tonight after the officers involved in Taylor's death were not charged, although one was charged with wanton endangerment for firing shots that went into an apartment next to Taylor's. Louisville and other cities have since moved to ban no-knock warrants. The AG says a witness testified that police had knocked, though, before going into Taylor's home. The 2 police officers who were shot suffered non-life-threatening injuries, fortunately. Now, turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire, a record high today, but what does the long-term forecast look like,
Yeah,
Bob?
the average high temperature for this upcoming week, this next 7 days, of 69 degrees. We think it might be a little warmer than that. Check this out. This is the 8 to 14-day forecast. It takes us from October 2nd to October 8th, and it says here all of the Pacific Northwest and much of the West Coast will be warmer than average. Here in Billings, we're going to be kind of warmer than average as well. I'm thinking maybe somewhere around maybe the low 70s to possibly 80s. The East Coast, they got a cold air coming down from Canada. They're expected to be cooler than average. But what about precipitation? Well, as you see it there, from the Gulf Coast up to the Midwest, all the way to the Northwest, we are expecting to be drier than average. That means we might see a couple of sprinkles, but that's about all. Don't get your hopes up too high. It looks like for the next 10 days, maybe even 14 days, 2 weeks, we're looking at generally drier and warmer conditions here. We'll have the rest of your forecast in a few more minutes.
All right, thank you, Bob. Well, there are always spectacular sights to see in Yellowstone National Park, but one is really capturing a lot of attention. A grizzly has been enjoying a long picnic after drowning a huge bull elk and pulling it to the side of the Yellowstone River. It's also been a feast for photographers. For almost a week now, the 600 to 700 pound grizzly known as number 791 has been camped out on the bank of the Yellowstone River at the northern end of Hidden Valley, enjoying a slow meal and giving people a view of nature that is usually reserved for National Geographic.
Oh yeah, there's people there at first light until last light.
Braden Raisler is one of the many photographers who have been staging across the river. He captured the pictures and video that you see here from about 150 yards away.
It's a real treat for photographers and tourists alike to have one this close to the road and one that's happened this long. Usually they only last a day or two, and a lot of the stuff usually happens at night when nobody can see.
It may be a one-course meal, but number 791 is taking his sweet time devouring it, never wandering far away from his prized prey, and also having to fend off a few challengers in the process. Check out this picture that another photographer, Seth Royal Croft, sent of a wolf bravely facing off with the bear. Number 791, as you might expect, held his own and continues to sit guard and sit pretty for pictures.
It's very, very rare, so it's been an amazing opportunity for everyone.
Well, Braden did tell me later this evening that number 791 did finally leave his picnic site today and another grizzly moved in for a well. This story is an important reminder that it is always a risk to approach a carcass in the wild because bears may be nearby. Still ahead on the MTN 10 o'clock news here on Q2, music to your ears. The Billings Symphony getting ready to kick off its 70th year at a new home. We'll get you ready for that next. And in sports, the PBR Finals will have a new home of its own. Scott tells us where they'll heat up next.